I am so excited to have you on today, Tiffany. I know you're in Texas, so you've been dealing with the power outages. We had a start that we were supposed to do, and then Mother Nature got in the way. But here we are today, and you've been so flexible to reschedule. So thank you so much for being here.
Of course. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So, Tiffany, your background is so incredibly impressive in terms of what you have done and what you've accomplished. And I want to talk about, if we can, I want to start with really where did your love for cooking, where did it start? How did that get instilled in you?
Yeah, so my grandmother had 11 children and she was a single parent. And all of my uncles, all of my aunts, everyone cooks. So me saying that I want to go to culinary school was sort of like, why? Like, you're not special. We all do that, you know? And so my love for food and what like the representation of the table was really started to become when I was young. You know, I didn't quite understand the symbolic between like the table and family and the table and relationships, I guess is a better word, until I got older. But what I knew was that when I thought about food, I thought about family. And I thought about that table and all of that, the love and the time that we spent there. And I knew I wanted that to be a part of my life.
So you have had so much success between opening your restaurants and also you've competed and been successful on television with Top Chef. So can you talk a little bit about what it's been like, right? Because you've had so much success, you make it look easy, but there are challenges for women and in particular women of color within the culinary world. So can you talk about what's maybe some of those challenges have been and how you've been able to overcome them?
Sure. So I'll tell you a story. It was the first job I ever went after, a breakfast restaurant. And I went in, I'm 15 years old, and I go in and I say, I want to be a cook. And they say, well, no women are allowed in our kitchen. And I'm like, oh, what else do you have? And so I said server position, and I didn't know, I really didn't understand sort of, what all of that meant at the age of 15, right? I guess you can say I lived a little bit sheltered. And so that was my first real like thought and remember and my memory on, being denied some access to anything. The more I got cooking and the more I really, really got into culinary school and the restaurant business, I started to look around. I'm like, nobody looks like me, in culinary school. I'm in culinary school and I can't tell you one number one Black professor, nor can I find a woman who is a chef that's running her own business. I'm from a small city. So I'm thinking, when I get to Houston, it's going to change. Nope. Not one. So my partner Thomas Foley in the restaurant, he always says, and you tell that story of the day that you met your chef and how excited you was to have, a chef like you, but it was a man.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, for me, I didn't grow up seeing it. I knew that I wanted more. I knew that I wanted to own. I knew that I didn't want to just be a cook all my life. And I didn't necessarily just want to be tied to one restaurant. My dreams were bigger. And even though I didn't see people who looked like me, I knew that as long as I worked hard and really was strategic in my process, that I felt like I could get there.
In terms then of this idea, Tiffany, that if you can see it, you can be it, right? The fact that you didn't have these role models on when you were growing up, although you had your family, you didn't have
Sure.
chefs, and especially when you started going to school, right? Culinary school, you couldn't look around and say, oh, here's the model of what I could be. How did you get there? How were you able to overcome that to say, okay, I don't care that I don't have a model to look at. I'm going to do this and I'm going to open a restaurant and I'm going to be the chef that I want to model maybe for other people?
At the time, I wasn't doing it for anyone else, right? Like I was just working and I just put my head down and I learned as much as I could. And I was raised in a way where it's like, hey, if you want it, you better work hard to get it. And so, I had a great support system. Not everyone has a great support system. Not everyone has someone in their corner saying, you know what, you don't see it, but you can be it. You can do it. And so for me, it was a little bit different. But what I learned along the way is that it's important for representation, right? Like it's important for those who may not come from the type of family that I came from to see someone out there doing what they want to do. There's been a lot of breaking barriers, and it's funny, I never quite thought of myself as that person, but there's a lot of people and a lot of comments, social media that I get of, women, children that are saying, wow, Black chef, wow. The moment that I cooked at the White House, I cooked at the White House twice for President Obama. And when when
What was
I
that?
went,
Oh, you have to tell us what that was like. You can't just say, "Oh, I cooked at the White House twice for President Obama," and then
it
move
was
right along.
it was just that moment that I realized, like, it was that particular moment when everyone was like, "Oh my gosh," and that was sort of the aha moment of like, "Holy crap, this is happening," right? Like, this is my life, okay. And it wasn't even the TV that did it. I mean, I knew that there were a lot of people who were watching. I mean, obviously, Top Chef is millions every week that the show's on, but it was like that moment of I felt like I achieved something, and I achieved it for everyone else, right? So it was a great moment.
Yeah. So, how did the opportunity at Top Chef come about? Because you were voted the fan favorite,
Yes.
and now you're going to be on for season 18 as you're going to be on the judging panel. But you've been on before already. So, how did that original opportunity for Top Chef come about?
Oh, I wish it was something I can say, everybody. So this was that moment. I'm working in the restaurant, and the server comes up and she says, "Chef, you have a phone call." And I say, "Okay, well, we're busy." And at this moment, I'm in an open kitchen, so everyone can see me working. So I have a rule: no phones allowed in the kitchen. Right? You got guests; they're looking, they want their food. You're on the phone. Not a good look. And so I tell the server to go ahead and tell them I'll call them back, take a message. And she's like, "No, it's Top Chef." And I'm like, sure, Top Chef's calling me. This girl from Beaumont, Texas, right? And so she's like, "No, Chef, it is. Please get the phone." So I answer the phone. I'm like, "Hello," because I really think someone's playing with me. And they say, "We are the producers of Top Chef Magical Elves. We'd love to have you come on. We've heard great things about you. We've been in your city, and people are saying that you should be one of the ones to come on." So I said, "I'm not interested," because I know, right? Who does that? I said I was interested because I was thinking more of like TV reality drama. I have been really just working, so I can't tell you that I knew so much about Top Chef. I knew of the show, but I was just working hard. So I told him I've never lived with people. I don't know about drama. And so they said, "Why don't you just come talk to us, and you win, like 200,000 or some crazy." No, it was 125,000 at that time. And I'm like, "Oh, really? That's more money than I had ever seen." So yeah, that's what made me go to the tryouts, and everything just worked out.
Yeah. So, what does it take? So, as I mentioned already, you were the fan favorite. You are someone who just comes across so authentically on television, and I think people are drawn to you. What does it take to do that, to be able to pop in that way on television? Is it just who you are? Do you think about it? What do you think makes you so magnetic to people on TV?
I think that we just have to be ourselves. My cousins, I have a lot of them, it's 50 of them. They're like, you're just as country on TV as you are at home. And so I think part of it is you just have to be comfortable in your own skin. I didn't think about the cameras when I was there. I didn't think about what, someone would say when they watched this or any of it. I actually just kind of blocked it all out. And every day I just wanted to cook good food. I didn't want to be a part of any drama because I knew my family was watching. And so I didn't want any of that. I just wanted to cook good food. And I think at the end of the day, when your motives are pure and you just approach it in that way of like not trying to be famous in this situation, but it just kind of works out.
So what led to, now you're coming back, as I mentioned, for season 18 on the judging panel. How is that going to be different than what you've done up until now on the show?
So I've done season 7 where I competed. That's where I won fan favorite. Then they brought me back in season 8, and then I was one of the finalists, top 5 in that category as well. Since then, I've been doing judging Top Chef Junior with the kids, and that sort of has been very, very different. And I love, 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 love the youth. And so I've kind of, had a chance to dibble and dabble in that. And I've done a lot of like bar rescue, so I do a lot of that for the last maybe 6 years. But judging Top Chef, like the original Top Chef season 18, very, very honored. I know what each of these chefs are going through. I feel it. I understand it. So I think that, I'll be a good addition to the team. And not only that, I'm also going to be a part of Top Chef Amateurs, which will be coming out soon as well.
Oh, wow. So you've got a full plate, no pun intended. You've got a lot going on. Plus, you are opening another restaurant right now. So I just need to have you talk a little bit about the fact that, here we are in a pandemic. Many restaurants have not really been able to make it. I live in the New York City area, and there are so many restaurants that have had to close.
Sure.
Not only have you not closed, you have 2 restaurants, but you're opening another restaurant. Can you talk about what that has been like and the fact that you just are continuing to do it given that craziness of what's happening right now?
Yes, I think it's important to understand that I had a restaurant when I had just finished Top Chef. And, at a peak of like so much publicity, so many things were coming. I had just finished and I didn't have ownership in this restaurant and they closed the restaurant. And it was one of the hardest things that I've ever had to do because you are the face of the restaurant. No one knows, no one cares about the owner. When you are the face of the restaurant, it's your restaurant. You carry the good, you carry the bad. And it closed without any type of conversation with me. So it was very, very hard. And I had so many people calling me. All my workers were calling in. They were like, well, what do I do now, chef? How do I provide for my family? And it was a weight that I felt very, very much so that I said, I'll never let happen to me again. If we decide, any type of establishment that I have or business where we have to close, we will do it in a fair way. And I just, that feeling makes me push harder. I have a great team, and that feeling of having to close or having to look somebody in the face and tell them they no longer have a way to feed their family. There's a little something that stirs up in me. And I just fought like heck to make sure that I didn't have to do that again. And not only that, everyone, we just made a plan. We've been blessed. But we also, it takes a lot of work. And what I've noticed is during this pandemic, you have to change. Sometimes the change and that pivot is weekly. I've had to change multiple of things that worked one week that didn't work the next. Maybe it worked for a month. And so you have to figure that piece out. And then sometimes it just doesn't work and you got to move on to the next thing.
That's just as an entrepreneur, that is just such great advice. Is the, you've said that been dealing with a situation that is unprecedented, right? No one has ever been through
Yes.
something like what we're going through right now. And no one that's alive today has gone through anything like this.
Yes.
And what you've basically said is the way to survive it, the way to get through it is to continue to change and innovate. So you try something, you see if it works. If it doesn't work, you move on to the next thing. But there is something about that ability to kind of continue to shift and not to get emotionally attached to the way that you're doing something. And
Yes.
it's how do you do that? How are you able to do that? And can you give an example maybe of something that you tried, it worked maybe for a period of time, and then you had to shift again?
Yeah, I mean, for me, failure is just not an option. And so I am very, you know, a believer in how can we get through this together. So
Mm-hmm.
one example, I remember when the grocery stores didn't have any food left. And I remember going to the grocery store and just being overwhelmed myself with like, oh my gosh. So I started doing grocery bags from the restaurant. We started taking things that we had and be, 3 pounds of tomatoes, 2 pounds of onion, 5 pounds of chicken, a toilet tissue, paper towel, some duck fat because my chicken, our chicken is fried in duck fat, and we put it in a little bundle and we sell it, and say, hey, come grab your chicken, your basket, your groceries. We'll bring it out to the car. We were not doing curbside at the time, and we were just figuring out how to do that. That lasted for about 2 weeks, and grocery stores started to pick back up. Their inventories were working out, so people wanted that less and less. At that time, people were still cooking at home, so we were able to next shift to providing sort of meals they can cook at home, give them all the supplies, tell them how to do it, and then they can cook it themselves when they get home. Well, that lasted for a little while because people started saying, you know what, I'm tired of cooking. I don't cook well and I don't really want to cook anything. So, we started ready-made meals that they just had to heat up. And that went for well. But the one that stuck the most for a few months for us were our family meals. The reason that the family meals did so well is, number one, we put it at a price point for a family. So a family of four could come. They got a meal that was completely ready, whether it be hot or whether it be cold. Certain days we switched it up. You would get vegetables from the farm. You would get all of a nice salad. You would get an entree that had some protein, starch, and more vegetable. And then sometimes we threw in dessert or a bottle of wine for $40. And so it was something that I wanted families to be able to have. I wanted families to be able to eat well and not go, well, this meal is so expensive, we can only do this once. So what started happening is people ordered from us. We sold out every single day. Every single time I announced a menu, it was sold out to the point I started doing more and more. And we just could never keep up. And it was because the price point was right. And I honestly feel like it wasn't about us just making money. It was enough to keep the doors open, allow my employees to make their hours, and also feed our community at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, what you just said is relatable to so many different kinds of businesses. And the fact that you understood your audience, you understood what they wanted and when they wanted it, and were able to adapt
Right.
is unbelievable. And I love your attitude. Failure is not an option. That okay, so let's go back for a little bit if we can. When you already talked about the fact that you grew up with people around you cooking, it was just part of the DNA of kind of your family, and it's sort of in you, right? It's inside of you. Can you talk about what it's been like? You've had your first job. You talked about the breakfast, the national breakfast chain that you
Yep.
worked at. Can you talk about what it was like working there for you as a young person?
Yes, I was 15 when I started working there. It might have been 3 months when someone called in as a cook, and then they came to me and they said, "Hey, Tiffany, can you come cook for us? I said, absolutely. I took that server apron off and I was in the back screaming orders. I didn't know that the job that needed to be done was called an expo. And that's the person who tells everyone else what to cook while also cooking. So any ticket, anything coming to the restaurant, that expo person tells them, and that's how you get your food because the expo person has said that. Well, at that restaurant, you had to cook as well. So I became very good with cooking and talking at the same time. So one of the hardest positions in the restaurant I was able to do on my first. When I was about 16, they gave me keys to the building because I could run the restaurant. So one of the youngest to manage at that time before the age of 17. So it started there. And from there, it just kind of kept going. I went to culinary school. And from culinary school, just started to work in different types of restaurants. One of the things that was important for me as a chef was not just to work in fine dining, where I was cooking, but also more on the business and the corporate side. So I got with Landry's Corporation, which is a really large company, has hundreds of restaurants, to learn more about the business side. Why do restaurants fail? Why do they stay open? Which ones are making more money? And how do I make my restaurant make more money without tweaking anything else, but looking at a P&L. So those were things that I learned along the way.
That's amazing. So this is the restaurant that the one you were talking about, which was your first position, your first job, where they originally told you we don't have women in the kitchen. You went from that to getting keys. And in what period? How long was that period of time?
Oh, maybe about maybe a year I had keys, maybe 10 months. I don't know. Yeah, it was very quick. And I was still in high school. Yes.
That is unbelievable. Now, it was not always smooth sailing there, right?
No.
You've had some incidents and you've talked about this publicly before. Can you talk a little bit about some of the racism that you have come up against in your time working in the culinary industry and working in restaurants?
Yes, in that same restaurant, I'll never forget. There was a lady that came in, and again, remind you, I'm young. I don't really know a whole lot outside of my city, right, Beaumont. And she didn't want me to serve her. I remember it very well. She didn't want me to serve her. She was with her family, husband and a son, and she didn't want me to serve her because she said I was Black. And so I just didn't understand it. Like, I was very good at what I did, and I remember her wanting another lady who actually had just got out of jail, but she was white and she was good enough to serve her. And the lady she started just sort of mocking me as I walked by, calling me all kind of names. And eventually they put her out. And as she walked out to the door, she said, "You old monkey." And she gets in her dually truck and throws a banana out the window in front of the restaurant. And it was just horrible. And I didn't know this lady. I had never seen her. I had never done anything. And it was my first lesson of it really doesn't matter. Sometimes, it's them, those people who have their ideas of who people are. And imagine if I took that one lady and I judged everyone off of her reactions. And I just had to learn those lessons really early on. And my chef used to tell me, he said, "Tiffany, you already got 2 strikes against you. First off, you're a woman in a man's kitchen and you Black. So you better learn to have some tough shoulders. You better learn to navigate these waters because it's different."
Yeah. Well, and the idea that you were able at a young age to recognize that just because just because this woman said this, you weren't going to make generalities. That is something that most adults do not seem to be able to do, right? I mean, we are in a very, we're in a very contentious environment. We have been, there has been a lot going on around the country. How do you think things have changed? And do you think things have changed? Do you think we've made progress in terms of how people are starting to feel? Because I go back to what you said earlier and what we talked about earlier. If you can see it, you can be it. And the fact that people are starting to see so many more different kinds of people be able to succeed and do different things, hopefully that can change the perceptions that maybe people have in very much deep down and ingrained. But I want to hear your perspective on how you think things have evolved, and if they've evolved.
My first thought is I want to say that things have evolved over the last couple of years. Sometimes it feels like we're going back, just seeing how mean spirited people are, it's almost like they were at one point sort of not letting you know. And now it feels like everyone can just say and do whatever they want to do, and we're not just talking about just racism. We're talking about just mean hearted people, and um, there is an incredible amount of work that needs to be done. And in saying that, I don't want to not shine the light on the people who are doing the work, because there's so many people who are. And I hope that, I'm in that number, but there is still a lot of work that has to be done, because some days it feels a little rougher than others. But you know what? Every time, there's a little bit light, I feel like that light just shines through and you forget about that darkness in the moment.
Well, and I appreciate that perspective, and especially, and I think that's one of the things just listening to you that makes you so successful is that you are able to kind of look at what are the, how do I positively take something and move forward? It seems like your outlook on life is much more as a positive. You look very positively towards things. It strikes me as talking with you that you have a very strong a sense of who you are. And I think a lot of women struggle with that, self-awareness and really understanding who they are and understanding their worth. How
Sure.
do you think about that? How have you developed that?
I think it takes a little bit of work, right? I can't say that I was born this way. I think that life challenges can get you. I've been married, I've been divorced, I have a son as well. I've had restaurants close on me. There people have broken your heart, right? That's all of us. We all have something, but I think we have to choose to either see the good, we have to choose to move forward. And how do I move forward? How do I not allow all of life's bumps and bruises to affect me in a way that it keeps me from being who I'm supposed to be? I also have a very strong belief. And so I am very spiritual as well. And so I just believe that what's meant to be is going to be. But I also know that I have to do my part. And so I think that through life, as we mature, as we grow, as we find ways to self-love ourselves, right, and to take care of ourselves, and understanding that it's no one else's job to take care of us, it's ours. And we have to set aside that time to do that. And I mean more than getting our hair and our nails done. I mean that inside, right? Telling yourself you're beautiful until you look in the mirror and you see that you are beautiful. Sometimes we have to just keep saying it and doing it. What they say, what's the term? I'm so horrible with word. Fake the funk, right? Until you feel it. So, at some point you'll get there, but just believe it. And then if you can believe it, eventually it will happen.
So you are someone who has accomplished so much and are such a role model. Who are your role models? Who do you look up to?
I mean, my mother. My mother is the strongest, most kindest, beautiful person there is on this earth. She will give any and everything to help others. And so, definitely my mom. But I've had people who have either been mentors, and it's funny because when I say mentor, there are times that there are people that I get certain things from who maybe necessarily don't even realize they're giving me certain pieces, right? Certain things about business I get. I think people say the word mentorship so often they think that it's this big old thing and this person stays with you forever, and they're giving you all of these words of wisdom. But sometimes there are different mentors throughout my life that I've been able to call and look on or see what they're doing and talk to them about certain things, and so I've had quite a few.
I love that you say that it's your mom because what better? I mean, I'm sure that is such a gift to her. Hopefully, I'm assuming she knows that, and that is such a gift.
Yes.
You know, we I love when children can kind of know while their parents are still with us and show them that appreciation. It's a
I
gift.
believe in
It's a
that.
gift
Yep.
to her.
Show, they say, give us our flowers while we can still smell it. And
Yes.
I 100% believe in that.
Yeah. So let's talk about your overall mission and what your mission is. Can you speak to what drives you and what your mission is in life?
Yes, yes. I learned that food was just the gateway, right? The restaurants are amazing, and I love everything about the restaurant business. I love the craziness. I love the hecticness. I love how I have to figure things out every day. It's a new day. But I also learned that what I love the most is the gift of people, relationships, being able to talk with, whether it's my employees or whether it's the guests that come to the restaurant. And so one of the things that I love is youth. And I love teaching them. I like talking to them. I like encouraging them. I love it when I see a young, brown girl walking the streets, and I tell her she's beautiful and her just eyes just light up. So, like, I think there is so much love that we can do for our youth to make sure that the next generation is going to be ready. And so that's one of the things. But I also believe in good food and good policy. So I do a lot of work in DC as well, just making sure that our systems are going to be set up for the long haul, and that we are allowed and able to find good food. Because truthfully, we have enough food in this country where no one should be hungry. Prices should be able to be done. And I think that's important. So for me, that's one of the things that I work on.
So, so what in terms of this what you're working on with the related to policy, can you talk a little bit about what you're doing there just so people
Yeah.
understand?
So I work with a few different organizations. One of them is the James Beard Foundation. I'm the ambassador for food waste. So I work a lot with helping to end food waste. We have a big goal, and I do videos, I do talks, I do a lot of showing how we can eliminate some waste from the farm to, driving it here to grocery stores, restaurants, to in our house, because waste happens everywhere, and the least amount will be actually in our home. And so when you think about like how much food, if you go to a farm, I don't know if any people have been to a farm, and you see how much food sometimes that does never make it to the gas to be able to get to where it needs to be, because there's just not enough workers, there's not enough demand. Sometimes we have these ugly fruit. We all want a perfect fruit, right? A perfect tomato. And so there's a lot of waste associated with it. So we have something called the Farm Bill. And the Farm Bill encompasses food waste, SNAP programs, agriculture, and so all of these things for farmers along with consumers for food. So it takes about 5 years. We work on that bill for 5 years, and we lobby, and we're getting more and more chefs involved. And so that's one of the.
That's amazing. So, of all of the things you have accomplished, because there are a lot, what what are you most proud of?
I have the most amazing boy. His name is Jerry. He's not a boy anymore. He's a man, but he's in college and he plays football. And seeing him, I was listening. So he plays football and he's very good. And he was doing an interview the other day, and I was just listening to him talk. And I'm like, oh my gosh, maybe we didn't do so bad. But he is sort of the light of the world. He is, he makes everything worth it, and I love that I didn't sort of, not talk to him about certain things at a younger age to understand. And I make him think through. Critical thinking is so important for our young ones. And so, he just, he makes me happy to see that, we've done something right.
I love that. I love that. And I hope that he knows that. So you've given flowers to your mom, you're giving them to your son. Hopefully I'm guessing that they know
they know, yes.
how special that is. What do you think your personal superpower is?
My personal superpower. Most people say, that I'm sort of like the girl next door. So when I'm talking to people, I have a way of making people feel comfortable, being able to connect, no matter who you are or where you're at. And so I love that people just feel so comfortable with me, which in return allows me to whether talk about subjects that either I'm in love with or passionate about, or maybe give advice to things that they may be looking for.
That is awesome. And then I think it's probably the reason too, right? What you're talking about is the reason that you were voted fan favorite. You just have that kind of magnetic personality, and it is a superpower. It's a gift to be able to connect with people.
Oh man.
So what, in terms of, one area that I know you've built your own platform, you have in terms of your followers, you have used the opportunity where you're on television, you've grown a community of your own followers who listen to what you have to say. How do you think about that in terms of using social media, the following that you've built, to really talk about the issues that you care about and your business?
I used to say, cooking is a non-political, right? Like I just want to just give you recipes and I want to be able to communicate. But the truth is that everything at this point is, and not in a bad way. It just means that, in order for me to talk about things that matter instead of being quiet about things, right? We all have to take a stance on something. And so the day that I decided that we are going to talk about what matters, whether it hurts someone's feeling, maybe they don't understand, maybe that person just haven't done enough research to understand. That's sort of when things changed on my social media. And that's truly when I feel like I got better engagement. And the one thing that I wanted the most was for it to be an open conversation, and so we had that. And I remember having conversations around some policy and, someone saying one thing and, sometimes people don't know how to disagree. I have no problem with disagreeing. And I used to tell my son this all the time. It's, how you say it. Do you have the facts to back up what you're saying? Right. And so at that point, it's just a conversation. And both of us can end on not agreeing with each other. And that's okay. But I've had some where, once we talked and they took the edge off of how they felt in that moment, and we just had that conversation and they came out going, wow, I never looked at it that way. And so I think that's kind of what makes it really, really special for social media. And I think that's the reason we have to speak up for what we believe in.
Love that. And, I have seen your social media, and you have such an authenticity to how you talk about things that I think, as you said earlier, once you started really talking more openly about issues that were important to you, you saw your engagement go up. And that's the trick, right? It's being authentic. Yes. So you've got a lot going on. You're opening the new restaurant that we talked about earlier. You're going to be on season 18 of Top Chef, which airs in April.
Correct.
I dare I say, what else is going on? What else is next for you?
Yeah, so Roots Chicken Shack, we have our Plano location. We actually opened our Austin location in the middle of the pandemic. That
Oh
was
my God.
but it's been doing fine, and we have more plans for Shack that will hopefully be at the end of this year or early next year. I work for Novo Nordisk, which is a diabetes company, and so I do health and wellness on just teaching people, how to better eat with diabetes, which is truthfully
Mhm.
how we all should be eating, which means less carbs, right? Nothing fancy about it. Let's just take in less carbs, and so I love the work that I get to do there. And then we're gearing up for our next farm bill, so it's time. It's time to get to work.
Wow. Okay. So how you've got so much going on that I think also people will want to follow. So how should people follow you if they want to continue to watch your story?
Definitely look on Instagram. I am under MasterChef TV, or just Google Tiffany Derry. So we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. You can follow our restaurants, or TiffanyDairyConcepts.com is where I house all my stuff.
Thank you so much, Tiffany,
Thank
for spending the
you.
time today. We really appreciate it. I hope that everyone gets all of their power back and everything starts to run smoothly. I know it's been sort of an unprecedented time in many ways. So
Yes.
we appreciate the time you took to spend with us today and excited for what's next and to continue to watch you succeed.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.